Hello, another podcast episode. And you know what? This is actually it's turning into a series I'm noticing because there's the art and accuracy episode that I did, and then there's the Hollywood and accuracy episode that I did, and this one is also going to be about accuracy because and to be quite honest, I had no intention of doing this episode, but things are getting so out of control that I got to talk about it. So oh my gosh. Ugh, my my heavens. Yeah, after doing the Legend of Zelda episode, I didn't want to do an episode so soon after. But this is ridiculous. Okay, so the movie Napoleon is in theaters. I haven't seen it yet. And and the thing about it is that before the movie was released, nobody had a problem with Ridley Scott. The only thing was questioning why he was doing Gladiator 2. And because I remember when the announcement was that Pedro Pascal was going to be part of the cast, and comments would be, "Really, we're still doing this? Why are you even trying?" I'm one of those people. It's like he just doesn't know what happened in his movie. And I love that Russell Crowe completely disregards the movie. It's like he he knows what happened in the movie is, anyway. So then Napoleon comes out, and all of a sudden there's this tidal wave of just rage and hatred towards the movie and Ridley Scott. There are endless videos talking about this movie. They say it's a review for the movie, but all they want to talk about is the inaccuracies, the historical inaccuracies, and nothing else. That's it. There's one video in particular that says Napoleon is everything wrong with biopics. I tried watching it. It's like an hour and 15 minutes long. And this particular person doesn't I mean it's just him raging. He doesn't really give any information. Yeah, he's just mad. He's butthurt. And I have never seen a movie bring out so many air quote historians and history majors and history professors and teachers before. Which I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say a lot of these people are lying and they're just trying to jump on a bandwagon. Okay, stop it. Because I have already come across a lot of these so-called reviews where they're talking about the inaccuracies, and basically what they're doing is they're reading off Wikipedia or Britannica or, those websites. And yeah. That's not what history professors do. Just saying. The comment sections in a lot of these, you see people talk about, well, I had to walk out of the movie theater. I've never been so upset in all my life because of all the inaccuracies and blah 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 blah. I don't believe that happened. Or you should be embarrassed with yourself for even saying that you did that, because if you were a history major or history teacher or historian or whatever, you should know that it's just a movie. Okay, this isn't a documentary. Did you really sit down in the theater and expect a Ken Burns documentary. That's not what Ridley Scott is. Okay, Ridley Scott didn't promise you a 100% accurate portrayal of Napoleon. No, he promised you a movie, a biopic about Napoleon, and yet you're still mad. Now I can understand. Let me, um, because I can understand if the movie itself is just boring. Okay, the costume design is all wrong. It's in the wrong era, that kind of thing. The movie drags. The storyline itself is just plain stupid. It doesn't make any sense, that kind of thing. Or the dialogue just is not cutting it. Those kinds of things. I can understand that. But these people are just so fixated on the historical inaccuracies. It's a fucking movie. Get in line. A, a biopic or or a movie based on actual events that's historically inaccurate? Wow, never heard that before. Titanic is historically inaccurate. Braveheart is historically inaccurate. Gladiator is historically inaccurate. Catch Me If You Can is historically inaccurate. Newsies is historically inaccurate. I talk about it all the time, and it's my favorite movie. Get over yourselves. This was the breaking point. Napoleon, is everything wrong with a biopic? No, I don't think so. You're wrong. Because when you look up the definition of biopic or biographical film, is a film that dramatizes the life of a non-fictional or historically based person or people. Dramatizes. It means you're going to have fictional fluff. Okay? Using my favorite movie, Newsies, okay. I've said before that in the events, the actual 1899 events, there was a riot that happened on the Brooklyn Bridge. Okay? And the Brooklyn Bridge was closed off. That never happened in the movie. We never saw that. Okay? I recently found an interview where Kenny Ortega was laughing and giggling and talking about how originally the movie was not going to be a musical. So basically, he was showing off to Gene Kelly. He and Gene Kelly were friends. Okay, problem is, Gene Kelly already knew that the age of musicals was over. Kenny Ortega didn't get that memo. So while he's wasting his time making this movie a musical, he could have made it a little more accurate historically. Okay. So while all these people are all butthurt over Napoleon and saying Napoleon is everything wrong with a biopic, this historical fiction movie that was turned into a musical so that Kenny Ortega, the director, could show off to a legend. Yeah, you're way off. You're way, way off. Okay. Sorry. Try again. Thanks for playing, though. Look, no. Okay? Not even close. Let me see here. I always forget his first name. Looking here. Frank Abagnale. Okay, who Catch Me If You Can is about. The one with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. So Frank Abagnale made it clear that the movie, he respected um, Steven Spielberg's decisions. However, it's not accurate because the relationship between him and his father was not correct at all in that movie. And there were a few other things that were not right in that movie. But again, he respected. You know, I could go down the list of all these different biopic movies that are inaccurate. Historical fiction films such as Titanic and Braveheart and Apollo 13. I talked about Apollo 13 in the Hollywood inaccuracy video where I said that the fight in the capsule never happened. And actually the astronauts were very angry over the fact that Ron Howard decided to do that. Later on, Ron Howard was regretted that he did that. You know, it it came out of Hollywood, okay? I don't know what to tell you. It came out of Hollywood. It dramatizes, okay? And I find it really funny that here's somebody who is saying, because this particular individual is like, did Napoleon really fire at the pyramids? The truth behind it. Yeah, everybody's fixated on firing at the pyramids. And this is a myth that has been going on forever. And of course, the Sphinx's nose and all of that stuff. People are so angry over this. And it's like, and I also saw where there was a historian that talked about, a Napoleon historian or biographer, or whichever one it was. And they were jumping on this whole thing and said that Napoleon embraced uh, Egypt and loved Egypt and everything about Egypt. Well, if that's the case, then why did he attack Egypt? It's because he was trying to be the next Alexander the Great and take over the known world. Okay, if he loved it so much, he would not have attacked the people. Okay, stop. Stop embarrassing yourself. Okay, because I remember in high school when we talked about Napoleon, and there was the whole thing about him firing at the pyramids, and of course, this we laughed about the Sphinx nose and all that and everything. And you know, you're acting shocked that he put in that Ridley Scott put in a myth. It's one of those myths that's in around. I mean, in Titanic, there's a line that Jack Dawson says when he first meets Rose. She's hanging over the side of the ship, and he mentions how it feels like a bunch of knives stabbing you or something like that. Professor, uh, Lightoller said that when he was talking about when he was going down in the ocean, and it felt like it. But people defend that movie. There was a lot of inaccuracies in that, and it's like, oh, but it's such a beautiful movie. And you can't cherry pick. If you're going to go after this movie, we're going to have to go after Titanic now and rip it apart and ban it. Okay? And I've already said that I'm very disappointed in at hearing that Newsies was going to be more accurate because oh my gosh, we have to make it a musical. Now I feel even more sorry for Christian Bale. And oh my gosh, look, I love the movie and I always have since I was 10 years old. But to sacrifice actually telling the story accurately for song and dance that was already dead, nobody cared about it anymore. Get a clue, Kenny Ortega. And even Gene Kelly said it was over. Nobody had the high ground that day. Oh my gosh. And when you look at a movie like Braveheart, those two, William Wallace and that queen never met because they were like hundreds of years apart. Marcus Aurelius and Commodus, thousands of years apart. And he died of plague. Marcus Aurelius died of plague. Commodus got a more dignified death in the movie. I've said it before. Why are you acting like this movie was supposed to be a history lesson? Because it's not. It's from Hollywood. Okay, it's a dramatic version of like in Walk the Line, another about Johnny Cash. Okay, these aren't history lessons, people. Joaquin Phoenix is not Johnny Cash. Leonardo DiCaprio is not Frank Abagnale. Okay, it blows my mind that we're at this point. Dramatizes the life. And a lot of times these biopics will focus on one section of someone's life. Yeah, it doesn't tell the entire. Oh my gosh. Renee Zellweger is not Judy Garland. Tom Hanks is not Mr. Rogers, thank goodness. Oh man. Yeah, right. Napoleon is everything wrong with. And I remember when that Judy Garland movie came out, and Renee Zellweger did, the actor on actor movie. I mean, the thing that Variety does, where it's actor on actor, and Renee Zellweger and Tom Hanks sat together, and because they had both uh, finished their movies portraying famous people. He, of course, Fred Rogers, and her, Judy Garland, and she even said that Judy Garland's daughters refused to see that movie. And she said that she respected that and everything. And it's and that's one I haven't seen. I mean, I was never a huge Judy Garland fan. I've seen a few of her movies and everything, but and I don't know why. I don't know why I never really. I mean, like, I liked her in Meet Me in St. Louis, and um, Wizard of Oz was never a big favorite of mine. There were certain parts of it that I liked, and everything. But yeah, I mean, there are certain movies of hers that I like. But as for being a huge fan, I felt sorry for her. What Hollywood did to her was terrible. But maybe it's one of those things. I didn't watch the movie because I just couldn't watch her downfall. That could be it. Kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody. I can't bring myself. Mom refuses to watch that because, of course, she was a teenager during that time. Huge Queen fan. She big fan of Freddie Mercury. And she says it's really cool that they did the movie and everything. She says, but I just can't watch it. I can't bring myself to see that. She says, because I was a little kid when, and I know I'm going off track here. Well, not really. Um, because I was a little kid when Freddie Mercury passed away. I remember seeing all of that. And the thing is, when I was really little, he they did like the Live Aid concert and everything. I remember seeing Freddie Mercury, and my cousin and I would always try to act out like him. I mean, like, he was so electrifying. Everything about him was just so awesome. The way he moved and the way he sang, even for a little kid, because I was like 5, 6 years old. And I have an older cousin who's like 7, 8 years older than I am. And she would turn on MTV. It was the summertime. She would turn on MTV, put it on full blast at grandma's house, and all of us little cousins would be watching, especially when they had the highlights for the concerts. It was really cool. So here we're watching this, and watching him move was just so neat. And so my cousin and I would be out in the backyard, and we would be acting like Freddie Mercury, doing the back arches and everything. And and um and so when I remember when they showed when he died, when Freddie passed away, and news anchors were crying. It was just so devastating. So I understand why mom wouldn't see Bohemian Rhapsody, but Raimi, because I've seen clips of it, Raimi did a phenomenal job of portraying him. But again, the thing to understand is it's not a history lesson. You could have the band there, you could have the surviving members such as Brian May and them. You could have them there guiding you through everything that happened. Doesn't matter. It's still going to be a fictional version of what happened because there's what's called dramatic effect. Just like the fight in the capsule of Apollo 13. That's why Ron Howard did it. Dramatic effect. And as a result, the actual astronauts that were there got on Ron Howard's case about it. Said all we cared about was getting home and we knew we had to work together. And they were not happy about that particular scene. And so, but that's what Hollywood does. They put these scenes in there for dramatic effect. And that's what that's what Ridley Scott did. The firing on the pyramids is dramatic effect. Ridley Scott is known for these war scenes. You see it in Robin Hood. You see it in the one with Russell Crowe, which he doesn't get enough credit for that, as far as I'm concerned. He has a different take on Robin Hood, and I love it. You also have Gladiator. So these movies that he did he do Black Hawk Down? I think he is the one behind Black Hawk Down. And so he does these war scenes and he's great at them. So of course he's going to do dramatic effect, and especially when you have that myth surrounding if Napoleon shot at the pyramids or not, why wouldn't he use that for dramatic effect? But you have these air quote historians and professors, whatever. I call bullshit on that. If you are, fine, but I find it really stupid that all of a sudden all these people are mad about the history. It's a movie, people. It's a movie. Okay, it's not a Ken Burns documentary. Okay. Good Lord, people. And and there's this article that I'm looking at, and one of the things that it talks about is such as that, and it also brings up, did Napoleon crown himself? Well, duh. His ego was up to high heaven. He had paintings of everything. There are people that still believe the painting where he's on a white stallion, and with the coat billowing out, he was on a donkey. That's the truth of it. The truth is he was on a donkey. He rode through on a fucking donkey, people. And he was trying to make Napoleon was trying to make himself the ruler of the world, like Alexander the Great. Okay? He wanted to be like Alexander the Great. That was the whole thing about it. Okay? And it says here, in an astonishing act, Napoleon had indeed already placed a crown on his own head, though the oil painting shows him in laurel leaves to signify his triumphs. The film depicts the magnificence of the oil paintings, which shows Napoleon in his. Wow, you're acting like Ridley Scott is the first one to use the to use artwork instead of um uh, painting in general during that time was a form of documentation. Okay, the fact that Napoleon himself said, I want you to document this. I want people to remember me in this way. Do it. Paint this. Okay, the fact that you people are so fucking butthurt over something that this is what Napoleon wanted to have us remember him, and you guys are. Okay, that's the funny part to me. There are a lot of movies that portray the oil paintings instead of actual events. In Newsies, the leader is Jack Kelly, not Kid Blink. And a lot of fans are so enamored of this movie, are so in love with this movie. Seriously, get a life. I'm so tired of this. I can't believe that you didn't fit the pieces together on this one. Okay? I'm sorry that cameras weren't invented yet. Get real. For all the historians that are coming out of the woodwork and all the history majors and all the people waving their PhDs and bachelors and all the paperwork and everything, you didn't figure that one out? Fuck off. You're attacking Ridley Scott when you need a massive reality check. And you could be mad at me to high heaven. I don't care. But the truth of the matter is, Napoleon had an ego that was so inflated, it's ridiculous. Okay, he wanted to be Alexander the Great. That's I don't know where you're missing the pieces on that one. Okay, but you were reading too much into this when you're saying that the painting shows him in laurel leaves to signify. No, he was wearing the laurel leaves for a reason. You're you're twisting it around to make Ridley Scott look bad. Okay. Oh, fuck. Oh, wow, he used oil paintings. Uh-huh, and when they do the Odyssey, they use the crockery and the oil, the frescoes. Holy shit. Can't believe these are adults that are actually doing this shit. Okay, and then when it talks about his relationship with Josephine, which was troubled, I'll agree with that one. I mean, what relationship isn't? Seriously, what relationship doesn't have its ups and downs? Okay, but one thing you have to understand is that, like, I have actually seen documentaries where the host is so zeroed in on the idea that Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn were so in love with each other that they weren't screwing other people. Okay, the thing about it is back then in Tudor England is that you could be married and it wasn't a big deal if you still had mistresses. You know, if you were still messing around with other people. He could because he was king. But if he found out about her, that was a no-no once she got married to him. Okay. Yeah, I've seen these documentaries on Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn where it was like, oh my gosh, they loved it was such a passionate love. No, they used each other. I've said my piece on that one. She wanted to be queen and he wanted to get rid of Catherine, and I'm not sure where the disconnect is on that. But the thing is it talks about in the film, Ridley Scott portrays Josephine as a young seductress, and they don't like that. This particular person in the article who writes the article doesn't like that. Wow, somebody portrayed differently than what you expect them to be portrayed as. First of all, unless you know Josephine personally, how do you know how they actually are? You do know that when it came to, I think it was Officer Murdoch in James Cameron's Titanic. James Cameron actually was attacked by the family of Officer Murdoch for portraying him the way that he did in the movie. They didn't like that. And as more and more comes out about uh, Bruce Ismay, a lot of people who have portrayed him as this pompous, arrogant, rich brat were wrong. Yeah, I mean, sure, he was a rich kid, but who inherited his father's estate, but I mean, like his father business and everything. But there's more to the story, and they don't want to see past the demonizing that Pulitzer. I mean, yeah, Hearst did. Pulitzer was already dead. Look, this isn't the first time that this has happened. Okay, it's for dramatic effect. Okay, and don't act like you're a big fan of this particular character in history. I don't believe that you even knew who Josephine was or that you could care less who Josephine. This is what happens all the time. It's like these movies come out and then all of a sudden you're a huge fan of this person when you have no clue about the Napoleonic Wars. You know? Fuck's sake. Oh my gosh. I can't stand when people do that. And so anyway, I mean the fact of the matter is that people are posting all of these air quote reviews when really all it is that they're mad about the historical inaccuracies. All of a sudden they're history experts and history but and I've never seen this before in all my life. If you like history, fine. I'm not going to go against that. Um but it it's a movie. It's not a Ken Burns documentary, it's not a Dr. Joanne Fletcher documentary, it's not Dr. Mary Beard. No. Ridley Scott said that he was going to give you a biopic on Napoleon, and that's what he did. Okay, now I would be sympathetic if the movie is absolutely boring, it has terrible dialogue, the costumes don't fit. I'm looking at pictures of it, the costumes look fine. Okay, so that's void right there. And so if dialogue is terrible, all that stuff. Okay, I've seen movies where it's just incredibly disappointing because the story drags, it makes no sense, all of that. Yeah. I would be sympathetic, but all these people are just so fixated on the historical inaccuracies. It's not a documentary, people. Where is this coming from? Like the only place that I could find where people actually stepped away from the historic, they touched on the historical inaccuracies and said, yeah, there are historical inaccuracies, but here's some other stuff that, whatever. Um, is like Critical Drinker, Nerdrotic, and Geeks and Gamers, and those people. They had adult reviews. Eh, They're not the ones that are raging to high heaven against Ridley Scott over this movie. By the way, if you're not following Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker and Geeks, go follow them. It, okay, Napoleon is not everything wrong with a biopic because seriously, stand in line. Okay, Newsies isn't a biopic, it's a historical fiction movie, but my gosh, finding out that this wasn't originally supposed to be and it could have To sacrifice more historical accuracy for song and dance that nobody cared about anymore is really disappointing. Okay, I will forever love Newsies, but that is really disappointing. Titanic is historical fiction. Okay, Jack Dawson said a line that was actually from one of the survivors, and I believe it was Lightoller. Okay, I've seen the movie twice, and I know more about it than the actual fans. Come at me, I don't care. Braveheart, William Wallace would have never met the girl, met the queen, because they were hundreds of years apart. Okay, Gladiator, Marcus Aurelius died of plague, was not the father of Commodus. Commodus had a more dignified death in the movie. Okay, and I mean the list goes on. Frank Abagnale said that the relationship between him and his father in the movie is not how it was. Okay, there are a lot of biopics that dramatic effect, learn what it is. Okay, there are some movies that made people so angry that were just outraged. They're like, I can't believe you made it. But people love it. The movie Ed Wood pissed off the son of Bela Lugosi. And you're trying to tell me that this is the one that's the problem? Sure. Okay. Yeah. That. Okay. Right. Uh-huh. Sure. Sure, people. Okay. It's not a documentary. That's Ken Burns' job. Uh, in closing here, before I really go off, you've got all these biopics, and biopic is a dramatization. And from the sound of it, that's what this was. You got dramatic effect. Shooting at the pyramids, that was dramatic effect. Look, he has these moments of war, battle scenes that he does fantastic. That's what Ridley Scott does. Okay? So for dramatic effect, he took a mythical moment and used it for dramatic effect. I can't believe that these moviegoers are so stupid that they can't figure it out. And yes, I'm going to go that far. Saying that, well, these oil paintings show this, and he's dumb for doing that. He's not the first one. When people were making the Odyssey, they were using the frescoes as reference and crockery. Don't tell me that they weren't. Okay, because when you see the TV movie from the 90s, people were actually, I mean, the scene with Circe, she is positioned the same way as that famous painting of Circe. Seriously, grow up. Oh my gosh, but Ridley Scott is the first to do it. Yeah, sure he is. And when it comes to, portraying, you don't know Josephine. You've never met Josephine. For all we know, she was a seductress. But the fact of the matter is, Ridley Scott was not the first person to portray somebody the wrong way. James Cameron got in trouble by the family of Officer Murdoch. And they're not the first. Okay, I'm sure that there are tons of different times where a person in a biopic was portrayed the wrong way. Okay, it's not a documentary, people. Learn the difference. I'm closing up here.